Mm. All right. All right. So Tuesday's the big day, right? Souls to the polls. All Souls Day at the polls. It's a big day, right? The one day in 4 years you get to go cast your ballot for president, unless you've already mailed it in or voted in an early polling station. Hmm. Well, at least on Tuesday, the big day, we'll get to know who the next president will be, right? Or at least we'll know maybe in the wee hours of Wednesday morning or not. Probably not. By now, we've all pretty much conceded that the results of the elections will be definitively announced days, weeks, maybe even months after November 3rd. And heaven only knows what will happen in the meantime and in the wake of a decision. These are days of massive uncertainty. Between the current president, the future of the presidency, the deeply divided people, the pandemic, climate change, economic insecurity, and all the societal ills of our world, these days, we hardly know what we can depend on from hour to hour. Hard to figure out what in our lives we can control. Even a trip to the grocery store is fraught. Everyone is under a phenomenal level of stress, and we're all feeling just a little raw, right? Maybe retreating a little too often into the reptilian cortex of our brains. A couple of days ago, I was at a rally in Niagara Square protesting conditions at the Erie County Holding Center. Donna Robinson was there. Hi Corral was there. And a bunch of others. I mean, it was not a big rally, but it was a rally nonetheless. And this guy drives by. This guy drives by holding a Trump sign out his car window, shaking it at us, bellowing at us like an angry bull in a voice deep and loud enough that I am sure it shook the windows of City Hall. I was, I'll admit, a little stunned. Our our gathering had nothing to do with Trump. Nothing. It had to do with treating our neighbors like human beings. Last week, last week I mentioned that when you begin to shake things up, question the status quo, or protest the status quo, some people get scared. And when people get scared, they can get mean, and this guy was getting mean. So here we are, a few short days before the election, a vote which practically represents a referendum on the cultural ideology of this nation. And people are getting raw, shaking stuff up, getting scared, and getting mean. How in heaven's name, in this day and age, can we become a people of healing? Mm. Dr. Dominic Apollon remarked on the seemingly trivial experience of using the same old regular band-aids he used since childhood, an exercise he called self-administered anti-blackness. Then one day he used a bandage from a different manufacturer, and he said putting on a bandage that actually matched his skin tone felt like belonging. It took him well beyond the band-aid. He felt both valued and sadness for his younger self and millions of kids of color, especially Black kids. Those pasty pink bandages that he'd used 1,000 times before were reminders of the countless spaces where his skin was still not welcomed, where his skin is considered other, feared, hated. A wound plastered on a deeper wound, a sickness that pervades our society, a wound called white supremacy. Maybe a bandage that honors a person for exactly who they are might help in healing the whole. So here we are, a few days before the election. But you know, democracy doesn't begin and end with a slip of paper every 2 years. Voting, the vote, is not the only way to shape society, to reclaim democracy. It's just the tip of the iceberg, although the tip is indicative of the larger whole. Democracy, this is what democracy is. Here's a definition for you. Democracy is entering into community, transforming the community with your presence, and in turn being transformed by the community. It's a give and take thing, clearly not a spectator sport, as we have heard. The vote is a vital and small part of our decision making, but like any iceberg, there is much, much more beneath the surface. You, as a member of society, are not just responsible for voting. You're responsible for discovering the policies, practices, and issues that light your fire and capture the hearts of the people. You are responsible for government policy. I think we've all seen what happens when we leave governing up to the politicians, when we leave caring for the people up to the politicians. Even the best elected official can't heal the world all on their own. They need us. So today, as the election looms large, I'm thinking about the bellowing bull from Niagara Square. I'm thinking about fear and meanness and healing. I'm thinking about our own hurt. How many of us these days are frightened, uncertain, angry, sometimes thoughtless, troubled, or lonely? What do we need to heal ourselves and heal the whole? To go beyond the Band-Aid? How can we offer our neighbors reassurance, compassion, acceptance, and commitment? Could we, as people of healing, share our stories, feelings, and questions with a goal of understanding one another? Could we listen to one another and comfort one another? I wonder what open-hearted questions I could have asked that Niagara Square bellowing bull, questions that would have helped me understand his wounds. What is he frightened about? A friend of mine told me a story. She said she'd been at a protest demanding universal health care. And prior to the event, she had been trained to engage the opposition. So when a mounted police officer arrived and faced her, she asked, as politely as possible and full of love, "Officer, does your employer provide health coverage?" And the cop nodded. So she asked him, will you and your family have coverage if, for whatever reason, you lose your job?" And my friend watched as the officer's mind went through the possibilities and his face changed. That was the end of the engagement, but it was a moment of connection and healing. Oh, my beloveds, this world is so bruised and hurting. There is so much healing to be done. And this month, we have a ton of opportunities for you to open your hearts and begin to heal the world. Opportunities to go beyond the vote, go beyond Band-Aid solutions to challenge and heal systemic sickness in our society. There is so much to do. The world needs your ministrations. Now, I'm going to list off a bunch of opportunities here. So ask yourself, what lights my fire? Where does my great passion meet the great needs of the world? Is your passion justice reform? Then write letters to people who are incarcerated. Through prisoners are people too. These folks need to hear from you. They need to hear that they are alive, that they're not forgotten, and that they matter. Give them hope and comfort. If you're interested in sending letters to incarcerated people, please talk to Hi Carell or send me an email and I'll hook you up. Maybe you're lit up by healthcare reform. Well, then support the Evergreen Health Services through our Share the Plate ministry. Make sure that all people in our community can receive equal access to care. Healthcare without discrimination is surely part of the beloved community. Maybe hunger is your issue. Then promote independent, healthy living in our community by delivering nutritious food to our homebound neighbors through Meals on Wheels. This is even more important during these days of COVID. It doesn't take much time to drop off 5 or 10 meals. But what's it worth to you to offer one of our elders much appreciated compassion? If you're interested in finding out more about Meals on Wheels, contact Kathy Taylor or email me and I'll hook you up. Or maybe economic justice is your thing. And I've got exciting news here. The congregation is partnering with 10,000 Villages, the little shop of super cool stuff and gorgeous things right across the street from our church. 10,000 Villages is all about proving that greater justice in world trade is possible. It's all about changing the rules and practice of conventional trade and all about putting people first in business. Imagine that kind of economy where people come first. 10,000 Villages is a nonprofit that not only promotes fair trade, but also fights poverty, racism, and climate change. This is good stuff. Look for exciting mission-based holiday shopping opportunities for you, just our congregation. One final thing. This Tuesday, this nation will be holding an election. Now, we all know that. What we don't know is A, the outcome of the election, and B, what post-election mayhem may arise. What we do know is that there if there is post-election reaction, if there is a reaction, people who are traditionally found at the margins of care in our society will be at risk. And I'm talking especially about Black people, brown people, Indigenous people, the GLBTQ plus community, and people with disabilities. We as people of faith are called to offer sanctuary and support those endangered by powers and structures of evil. If you are interested in joining me in a post-election response ministry team to care for the most endangered in our community, please let me know. Send me an email though, because if it's in the chat, it might get lost. Oh, my beloveds, there is so much to do, so many ways to heal the world. Letters to the incarcerated, evergreen healthcare, Meals on Wheels, gas to your table, fair trade, and post-election preparedness. What lights your fire? How can you help heal the whole? Liberation has a rhythm to it. A longing our bodies know without words, a movement away from everything small and scared, a waking up to possibility, healing backwards and forwards. Even now, we are beginning again, unafraid of all the mercy, tenderness, pleasure, power we hold together. We come to lean in, learn the sound of relationship, receiving and releasing. We come together to become more than ourselves, to call upon love, to sing of courage and kindness. Beloveds, despair has not yet won. Together we have so many ways to heal our world and bring justice, peace, and joy to all.